Chapter 5. The buses took forever to load after the last bell rang. My backpack felt like it was full of rocks, and I set it down on the peeling vinyl seat beside me to save Nori a spot. At least I could do it this time. I waved away the smell of sweat and fuel and waited for her, but when the door eventually shut, she still hadn't shown up. Maybe she was hanging out with Luke again. The thought of that made my shoulders scrunch all the way up to my ears. I tried not to think about it and sent messages to Hannah and Rachel instead. When I finally got dropped off, I barely had time to grab an apple with peanut butter before I had to change into my riding pants. I'd signed up to work in the barn on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 5 to 6 before I rode from 6 to 7, so it was easier to wear them the whole time I was there. Working before my lessons meant I could ride an extra hour without having to pay, which was great because my parents said one class a week was all we could afford. But that was only if I got there to work. Where was Mom? Did she forget she had to drive me? And where were my boots? Our stable was strict about safety, and we weren't allowed to ride in regular shoes. I was searching the garage when Mom's car finally pulled into the driveway. She seemed a little out of breath when she poked her head in the door. Sorry I'm late. I had to stay and help one of my kids with something. But I'm your kid, and I needed you here. You're working at 5, right? She continued. Will you be ready to leave in the next few minutes? Yeah, I said, still poking around. If I can find my boots. You didn't move them somewhere, did you? Mom threw her hands in the air. When would I have had time to do something with your boots? When would you have time to do anything that wasn't for the kids in your class? You'll be late if we don't leave soon. I'm running inside to use the bathroom, and I'll be right back. Make sure you're ready. She rushed off to the house. An old table blocked my way to the one corner of the garage I hadn't searched. It wouldn't budge. I pushed and got nowhere, so I gave it a heavy shove and managed to dent the wall. I cursed under my breath, since Mom would get mad if she heard me swearing, and then she grabbed a random box and covered up the dent. And I grabbed a box and covered up the dent, accidentally knocking over my bike, which led to my sister's bike, then Mom and Dad's, all crashing into a pile. What was that noise? Mom poked her head back in and stared at the tangled up stack of tires and handlebars. What's going on out there? I still can't find my boots. I was trying not to freak out, but even I could tell that I sounded frantic. Mom came all the way into the garage. I can help you look, but you shouldn't have waited until the last minute to get your stuff together. Well, duh. I searched behind the heavy table, but all I found were a couple of rafts and swimming masks. How could my boots have just disappeared? Here they are, Mom said as she pulled open the door of a cabinet where she kept her gardening stuff. I'm not the one who put them there. I grabbed them from her, then ran to the car, climbed in the front seat, and slammed the door shut. If Mom spent half of the time on our stuff that she spent on everything at school, this never would have happened. Neither of us had much to say on the ride. Then she had the nerve to stop at a yellow light. I let out a huff. She looked over at me. What? You could have made it through that. It was about to turn red. I know you're in a hurry, but there's no reason to do something reckless. But I wouldn't be late if it wasn't for you. My head was about to explode from holding all this in, but if I had said anything and it turned into a big fight, Mom might just turn around and take me home. She'd done stuff like that before, and it wasn't worth it. She finally pulled up in front of the stable. Get in there as fast as you can, okay? She said, and definitely be ready when I come home on Thursday. You could lose your job if you keep showing up late. And whose fault would that be? I jumped out of the car without saying goodbye. The musky smell of hay and horses hit my nostrils as I rushed past the barn and ran toward the office, my boots slapping the ground with every step. Therese, the barn director, looked up from her desk when I opened the door. Julia, you're here. I wasn't sure if you were coming. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 9 minutes after 5. I'm so sorry. Do you want me to try and get here early on Thursday? Therese shook her head. It's okay. First day of school and everything. She rolled her wheelchair over to the file cabinet, grabbed a folder, and rifled through it before turning back to me. I know I can count on you after how reliable you were all summer. Oh, thanks. She was so nice. I'd heard she'd been an excellent rider, training to become a jockey, till she'd been thrown off and badly injured by a horse that had gotten spooked. Opening Inglebrook wasn't exactly following her dream, but it was even cooler if you ask me, especially since one of the barns was used for rescuing and rehoming horses. I'll need you to muck out some stalls today. The first 2 rows have already been done. You should have enough time to finish the rest before your lesson. Sounds good. I'll go get started. As I put my backpack in my locker, my phone pinged with a message. I checked it really fast. Tyler G. Are you there? He was still thinking about me. Mom and Dad had told me not to ever talk to strangers online, so it wasn't like I was planning to respond, but at least someone wanted to talk to me. I couldn't help smiling a little as I grabbed a wheelbarrow from the storage shed and pushed it toward the stable and into the first stall. Hey, Pegasus, how are you doing? I reached out and stroked the soft skin of his muzzle, and his whiskers tickled my fingers. He snorted and bobbed his head. I petted him some more and then got to work, lifting the manure onto my pitchfork and loading it into the wheelbarrow. Once I was done, I gave him one last pat and moved on to the next stall. Each time, I was careful to read the horse's body language and make sure it was safe to approach. I'd been kicked in the shin once by a startled pony when I'd gone in a stall too quickly, and I never wanted that to happen again. The black and blue mark took a month to go away. When I finished cleaning the stalls, I wiped my forehead on my sleeve and hurried to check the lesson board to see who I'd be riding. Pegasus, maybe? Uh-oh. I had Stormy, the horse that gave me so much trouble in that show. She was a feisty chestnut with a bouncy trot, and her name totally fit. Like almost every mare, she could be moody, but on an especially bad day, she could shy away from jumps, as I knew all too well, and sometimes even flat out stop right in front. If you caught her at the right time, though, she was a lot of fun. I walked up to her slowly. Hi, Stormy. She nickered, and I looked back at me with her ears pointing forward. Then let me slip her bridle over her head. Since the teachers put the saddles on the horses ahead of time, all I had to do was lead her outside and tighten her girth at the mounting block before getting on. Gabby had already pulled Pegasus up to the rail across the paddock. I waved and directed Stormy their way. Pegasus is a great jumper, I said. I rode him over the cross-country course last year. He seemed to love it. Yeah, I can already tell he's a really sweet guy. Gabby's position in the saddle looked excellent. She had her heels down and turned at exactly the right angle, and her elbows were relaxed, slightly bent, and held in front of her body. We chatted for a couple more minutes until Leslie, who taught the advanced classes, walked into the arena. My group will be meeting in the far back ring, she called. Looks like everybody's ready, so we'll head over now. 6 of us made our way there, except for Gabby. The only other person I recognized in my class was Nathan, the guy who took the championship at the end-of-year show in June. I'd seen him around and knew he was about my age, even though he was much shorter and smaller than the rest of us. With someone as talented as him in the class, I definitely needed to bring my A game, or however you said it. Everything went pretty well during the first half of the lesson since Stormy was in a good mood and listened to me. Then Leslie had us circle together to get directions for jumping. Finally. My stomach got the quivery, fluttering feeling I always had when I was about to go over a course of fences. I watched and waited as Nathan had a near-perfect round, and then Gabby. When it was my turn, I patted Stormy on the neck. We can do this, girl. I nudged her on, and she broke into a canter. I kept my reins fairly short and urged her head to the first jump, a green and white vertical. She sailed right over, and it felt like flying. Her hooves pounded around the rest of the course, and I was breathless and smiling when we finally pulled up. Great job, Gabby said. Thanks, you and Pegasus looked amazing. Leslie let us walk around the ring with whoever we wanted while we cooled down the horses at the end of class. Pegasus and Stormy were side by side while Gabby and I talked. No one from school was at my old barn, she said, and none of my friends get wild of horses and riding. One of my best friends was all excited to come see me in a show once, but when she got there, all she could talk about was the manure. She cared more about keeping her shoes clean than watching me ride. I leaned down and petted Stormy's hot, sweaty neck. None of my friends get the horse thing either. Gabby and I chatted for a couple more minutes until it was time to head back to the barn. I gave her a wave, then led Stormy to her stall. It was so nice to finally have someone from school at Inglebrook. Rachel and Hannah had always been busy with tennis and soccer and had never made it to the barn. But Nori seemed like she was having fun with Brandy that day. She helped me out. For a little while, it looked like this was something we might be able to do together. Would she even want to, though, now that she was spending so much time with Luke? And if she really did forget about me, would my life go back to the way it was before I met her? During those awful months when I'd been completely on my own at school, there hadn't even been anyone to hang out with at recess. On the coldest days, when we stayed inside, I'd go to one of the computers in the back of the classroom and watch animal videos while the girls I used to be friends with sat together in the reading corner, whispering. I still remembered the video that explained the different personalities of sea creatures because I realized I could use what it said to sort out the girls in my class. The way I saw it, there were 4 kinds of people. Great white sharks, like Claire, were aggressive and on the attack. The girls who followed whatever Claire did and who didn't seem bothered when she was mean, they were like tiger barbs who pushed around smaller fish. Then there were guppies, who weren't naturally mean themselves, but also weren't very brave. That described a lot of the others. Last of all, there were swordfish, who swam independently, stayed out of everyone's business, and did their own thing. But where exactly did I fit in? I figured I must have been a swordfish, but it was awfully lonely swimming by myself. Then Nori showed up, and my teacher introduced us and asked me to take her on a tour of the school. The principal already took me and my mom around yesterday, Nori said as we walked by the other 5th grade classrooms, but I wasn't about to tell the teacher that. She smiled at me, but I knew it was only a matter of time before Claire got to her. "Where'd you move here from?" I asked as we passed the main office. "New Jersey. My mom's working in D.C., but it's way cheaper to live here than in the city. She used to commute to Manhattan." "Wow. Have you been to New York City a lot?" "Yeah, my favorite place is this diner where actors who are trying to get on Broadway perform songs in between serving people food. They have little stages set up around the tables. One afternoon, someone's bringing you mac and cheese, and then they're up there belting out a tune from a musical. It sounds really fun." I couldn't help smiling. We chatted some more while we walked around the rest of the school, then made our way to the library. When we came to a shelf displaying books from different countries around the world, Nori looked at a few of them before turning back to me. "I lived in Japan until I was 3. You speak Japanese?" That was even cooler than the New York stuff. "Yeah." "Can you write it?" "Uh-huh." Wow. Nori and I waited while a kindergarten class filed past us. "If you want, I can teach you how to do your name," she said. "Maybe at lunch. Are we allowed to bring pencils and paper to the cafeteria?" My smile crumbled. I had a feeling Claire would find a way to make sure Nori knew not to talk to me way before them. Turned out I was right. Our class was in the middle of math when we got back to the room. But when we were finished and getting ready for reading, Nori went to get a drink from the fountain and Claire zoomed straight back to her. I stared down at my desk, my face all hot. When it's time for lunch, I got in line by myself. But then Nori weaved her way past a few people and ended up right behind me. "Have you ever heard of mochi?" she whispered. "It's straight from Japan, and it's so good. I brought some in my lunch." My mouth dropped open. I didn't have a chance to answer, since our teacher loved to put kids at the quiet table, and anyone who made a noise on the way to lunch might as well have just gone straight there. As soon as we walked into the cafeteria, Claire went to her usual table and called, "Nori, come sit here with us." Nori glanced from her to me and back to her again. "Thanks, but I'm sitting with Julia." That was when I realized there was a 5th kind of person. Nori didn't seem to care about whatever Claire had told her. She was independent, like a swordfish, but also friendly. Did that make her a dolphin? For the first time since the talent show, I stayed in the cafeteria the whole time my class was there. We weren't allowed to share food, but Nori put her hand under the table and snuck me a round, white patty covered with powder. It was chewy and sweet with a delicious brown paste in the middle. We talked a lot while we ate. Later, we walked around the blacktop together at recess. When I finally told her what happened with the jump rope routine, Nori acted like it was the most ridiculous thing she'd ever heard. Claire must have a serious problem. She shook her head. And those other girls who went along with her? Who'd want to be such a sheep? So much for my ocean animals. Not me, I said. We looked at each other and laughed, and the worst 3 months of my life were officially over. Things have been pretty amazing ever since Nori came here. But what if it was never the same between us again? Dad picked me up on his way home from work. "Hope you're hungry," he said as he pulled onto the road. "Definitely. What'd you make?" "Walnut roasted tarragon chicken with a veggie version for you. Desserts, a ricotta baklava pie with rosewater syrup." "You should really try out for MasterChef. The judges would love all that." He grinned. I don't know. I smiled back at him. Think about it. I'm serious. Until I started going to sleepovers, I didn't realize that most people just bought bagels from the store and spread on cream cheese. Ours were homemade and ginger glazed, with whipped tofu for me and smoked salmon and capers for everyone else. Dinner was as good as it sounded, but I had a ton of homework to do, so I hurried up to my room afterward. Just as I got settled on my bed with my back against my pillows, since I'd never seen any reason not to be comfortable when studying, Louie meowed at my door. I let him in and scooped him up, then sat back down and pulled the covers around us with my laptop open. I'd heard before that tuxedo guys like my Louie were the very best kind of cats, and he was total proof of that. I kissed him on the nose as my phone pinged. Tyler G. I couldn't help noticing all those horse pictures on your profile. I think I've heard of Inglebrook Stable. Isn't that the rescue place? Okay, he really seemed to want to talk to me. How would it hurt to have a quick conversation about Inglebrook? It wasn't like Mom and Dad would ever have to know about it. I scratched Louie's head with one hand and moved to start typing with the other. But Louie must have had enough because he wiggled out from under the covers and climbed onto my dresser, knocking my entire stack of magazines onto the carpet. They landed with a thud and scattered into a messy pile. Are you saying you don't think I should answer him? Louie just sat there, licking his paw.